you also need to really think about, and this is true in business and the education, any of it, your hiring practices. Who are you bringing in? And if you're clear, if your school is clear, if your company is clear about your mission, your vision, and your values, this is who you are. Your mission is what you do every single day in, day out. What do you do? Your vision is obviously forward thinking. What do you ultimately want? In my case, what do I want these children to become? What am I looking to do?
Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening and forwarding these shows to your buddies so they can get exposed to all the different careers out there while they're figuring out what they want to do. Today, we got a cool story bringing business to education. Sharon Taylor, widely regarded as the greatest headmaster in Southern California history of any school. And we're going to get into the path to teaching and administration and what you need to do to be excellent in there. But we're talking about the power of work at every age and an early age, the business of education, vision, execution. This is a cool show, a lot to learn. Welcome to the show and welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Well, Sharon, thank you so much for making time out of whatever you're doing. You're always doing so much for so many people. So thank you for taking time away from doing things for people to do things for people and record this podcast. Welcome to the Edge of Excellence.
Thanks, Matt. Happy to be here.
Well, I've been trying to get you here.
Yeah, I know.
Supported me for a little while, and this is going to be a great show because we're going to get into how Sharon built the greatest K through 8 school in California, becoming an empowering leader, how Sharon pulled that off, raising funds, which is really difficult. And part of the reason she's on this podcast to develop a $40 million campus. But before we do, I got to know, Sharon, what's your definition of excellence?
All right. Well, to me, the number one piece about anything you're doing in life is showing up. So show up whoever you are, wherever you are. Work harder than anybody around you. You got to work hard. You can't get around that. In the meantime, you got to be kind. You got to be curious. You got to be willing to learn.
And if you show up as you are, where you are, you work harder than everybody. And I'm glad you said that. And I know you do. And you know I do. And you're kind and curious, 2 value words, then you're on the path to excellence.
That's right. It's not hard.
It's not hard. It does take commitment. Well, we're going to go back to the start before, and I don't know if you know this, but before you raised such great kids that random people come to me and tell me that they use your kids as a blueprint for their parenting. And I had that happen in Breckenridge, Colorado 2 months ago. Crazy. And we're going to figure out what the path was to becoming this life-changing teacher, and then a board member, then a head of school, then a board member again. I don't even know what you're doing now. But before we get to that, what was going on with you when you were younger? Our audience is younger. They're coming out of high school. They're coming out of college. What was life like in high school? Were you focused on being a teacher? What were you doing?
Yeah, I had a great childhood, great upbringing. And, hopefully this is going to come through when I talk to you, Matt. But I give so much credit to my parents, just how they raised me, the morals, the work ethic that they both provided for me gave me the platform to, have this confidence that's hard to explain. But it's a confidence that, no matter what circumstances I'm in, because there's ups and downs and trials and, I raised 5 kids. I have 5 adult children. As you talked about, I'd be happy to talk about all 5 of them because they're amazing. But my parents just gave me this foundation that I've always felt, no matter what happens to me, no matter what circumstance I'm in, I'm going to be okay. And I can't say enough about that. Both of my parents have passed. The last 2 years, I've had 2 years. One was a little bit more expected, but my dad passed away pretty suddenly not too long ago. And just, allows me to reflect on the fact that, wow, what a gift. What a gift. And as a parent myself and now grandparent, how can I instill that and model that behavior that things are going to come your way, but you're going to be okay. And you've got to have that confidence in yourself. And I'm blessed. I'm thankful that they gave that to me.
I talked to a guy yesterday recording a podcast, and he was telling me the same thing. He's in college, doing really well. And he got it from, his parents were this great example. His parents had these great values. His parents had this strategy to embed him with this work ethic and this worldly understanding, your case, confidence. I asked him, what happens if your parents aren't like that? Where do you go? I'm going to ask you a different question, because you work with, probably 400 sets, or have worked with 400 sets of parents a year. Most of them, almost all of them, if not all of them, trying really hard to be the best parents they could be. And doing a darn good job, because I also, when I was in Breckenridge, it was a group of like 16 St. Mary's kids and their parents, and it was just such a wonderful group of people. So they're trying their hardest. What do you tell a parent that wants to be like your parents? A bunch of my audience, they're young, they're about to have kids, they have little kids. They're listening to this, they want to be excellent parents. What are some steps to be like your mom and dad were and instill that confidence and that kindness and that curiosity that you were talking about?
Unconditional love, it's the kind of the bedrock of at least how my parents raised me. I agree with you. Every parent in the 30 plus years that I've engaged with at schools, I truly believe that their best intentions are to be the best parents they can be.
And I truly believe that none of us knew what the hell we were doing. And thank God we ran into you, because they made it a lot easier.
Yeah, you got to assume best intentions. They're trying their best. A lot of times you might not have those tools. Sometimes becoming a parent changes you a little bit, though. You might not have that upbringing that I was lucky enough to have, and maybe others. But when you become a parent, you get a sense of that love. That you would do anything for your kids, and so you got to try to assume that these parents are in that same boat. And so, leaning into it, as anybody, when you become a parent, leaning into the huge responsibility, but the amazing gift of being a parent and how you can really, influence it. So, I'd say to all upcoming potential parents, including my own children who are parents and soon to be parents. My son's getting married in October. My other two are married with kids, and my girls are, in college. But, that whole notion of showing up, show up as a parent, talk to your kids, be honest with them, be clear with them, treat them with respect, don't belittle them, all of those kinds of things, a way that you can just show this kind of respect. My dad, till the last day he died, couldn't tell me enough times, I love you, I'm proud of you, what you've done is incredible. I'm just so thankful that you've been in my life. You can't say that stuff enough to your kids, in my opinion.
Okay. Unconditional love, leaning into the change in the gift, honest, clear, and then the respect, I think, gets missed. You said belittling, but talking down to. And through years and years and years of that, and many, many mistakes, by the way, this episode, if you're thinking about being a parent, this episode is sponsored by Fortaleza Tequila. It's not just for dinner if you have kids. It's a difficult thing. So you're young, you're in high school, you're growing up, your parents are instilling you with this unconditional love, which you emulated, helping you build your confidence, telling you that they're proud of you, telling that they love you, telling you that they believe in you. And as a parent, look for those three things. See if you can say that to your kid every day. I love you, I believe in you, I'm proud of you. And I remember when my son was really difficult, we had to find something to compliment him on every day. And it started with, you got up today. Because there was nothing. He was this maniac when he was little, peeing all over my house and going crazy.
Such a good kid, Bass.
Oh my God, you don't even know. We do not even know. Changing the world. But we had to find somebody to compliment him on, find somebody to be proud of him on, find something to let him know that we believed in him. And that's what got the change. We were giving him attention for bad things before, he's always in trouble. And when he turned into that unconditional love, it changed. So you're getting that from your parents. You're in high school. Did you want to be a teacher?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where were you at in high school?
I grew up in Calabasas Park and San Fernando Valley.
Are you friends with the Kardashians?
I'm old, Matt. When I was there, the Kardashians.
Everybody from Calabasas has to be asked if they know the Kardashians. You know the drill.
I did babysit Steve Garvey's kids.
Oh. There we go.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I grew up in Calabasas Park, loved growing up in the Valley. And yeah, I did know actually that I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to get into education. I worked, and by the way, just, through high school, through college, I worked. And I think that's a big, miss sometimes that parents, don't have their kids work when they're in high school.
There's not enough time, Sharon. They have sport. They're so busy with their sports, they can't work.
They're private coaches and they're all of that. But shoot, there's times you can figure it out. You can figure
it out, mom and dad. If your kids are at St. Mary's, we would like all kids from St. Mary's to end up wonderful kids that understand the way the world works, have those IB values, and we want them to be successful. And the only way is if they get a job.
Yeah.
So they need, even if it's 10 hours a week the first year, and then 30 hours a week the second year, even if it's mowing lawns, they need to get out there and work because why?
Well, they can understand what it means. I mean, first of all, there's pride that comes with it, being able to, have something of your own. They're not going to appreciate, what they have. And I had a lot growing up. We lived very comfortably. It wasn't as if, I was needing to, to work to make ends meet with my family. It was just, I watched my dad. My dad graduated from high school, joined the Marines, found my mom, his wife in North Carolina, came back with a baby and, not sure what he was going to do. He started at a company in the warehouse and he ended up being the president of that company.
I heard that story.
It's amazing. I mean, that just shows, what you can do and that ability to be there and make it happen. So, working, internships, I'm a huge fan. All of my children, my children who now have jobs, which are soon to be 4 of the 5, but 3 of the 5, interned every summer in something related to what they wanted to do. And they all 3 are in that industry working and those internships, which I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, right? But it makes such a huge difference. It just really, really helps kids to kind of get a taste of what their future might be like and maybe something that they don't want to do. My son is in the wine business, my number 3, Scott, and of all of his years, he did 3 internships. One of them was in the food business, which he did not like. The other 2 were in the wine business, and that's where he ended up, and he's super successful in it. So, just you gotta get a taste and get yourself in there.
You hit a couple things. So, and I have a bone to pick with this because we can all go look at the stat. We can all go look at the reports. We can go look at the articles. What are companies looking for? It's always number 1, work experience. And then there's the frustration. And I saw it with my kid. every job says that it's an entry-level job and they want 5 years experience.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
go get the experience. So the resistance on my kids are too busy, my kids have too much sports, my kids have too much school. We've got to prepare them 360. The school is a great place to learn communication skills and interaction, and the field is a great place to learn teamwork. And there's definitely skills that are learned in class on the field. But when you get to the work element, if you're missing it, first you get the pride and the ownership that Sharon mentioned. The exposure is what Sharon was talking about. How do they know what they want to do? I'm an expert at this. The average college student knows 25 jobs. That's why we do this podcast. We're going to talk to Sharon about what it means to be ahead of school, what it means to raise funds, what her job is, because people don't know what it is. You know, if they never work, you're missing the exposure. You're also missing the communication skills, professional communication, taking it from the field and the team to the office. So this 10-year, 20-year, 30-year workup in hours, the time management skills, it's irreplaceable, and it's the number one thing companies are looking for. So you're in high school, you're in Calabasas, hanging out with the Kardashians, partying with the Osbourne, riding horses. People don't know there's horses there.
I did ride horses.
There's not just fires, there's horses. Probably eating some Dole fruit because Dole was based out there. And developing this confidence. You go to college. Which college did you go to?
I went 1 year to Pepperdine, and then I moved over to Cal State Northridge.
Pepperdine, right on the beach to Northridge, right around earthquake time.
Yeah, I mean, you know, interestingly enough, my reasoning, you know, Pepperdine, if you've ever been to Malibu, it's beautiful. It's an amazing place to be. But I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into education. And quite frankly, the Cal State systems, throw no shade on Cal State systems because they offer such a great education. And I knew I wanted a solid teaching lifetime credential, which I ended up getting at Cal State Northridge. And I thought, well, why am I, you know, I don't need to be at Pepperdine University where I'm not going to get the skill set that I want. So I moved over to Northridge, had a great experience in college, joined a sorority, and just pretty heavy leadership in that sorority. I was, you know, very involved in it. It was a tight community. It was Cal State Northridge is a big school with, you know, quite frankly, a lot of commuters. But that sorority fraternity life was really, really close knit and tight. And so we, you know, I was able to really develop kind of what I think were the startings of my leadership skills.
What are they? What were the startings? What do you think the foundation is?
I mean, the biggest thing, honestly, in leadership, and this is kind of what I've learned as my time as, you know, a leader in education. Certainly in a classroom setting, you know, you're working with, you know, 20 kids, and you're having to have systems that organize what they do so that their learning can be meaningful. But the leadership roles that I was drawn to, kind of, you know, from the beginning, is the ability to work and interact with any personality. It's so important.
I was going to say controlled, but the definition of controlled partially is the ability to work with any personality and maintain your cool and maintain your control and never let them see you sweat and don't get engaged emotionally and control your reaction. So I don't know how many years of therapy you've been through, but I've been through a lot. And a lot of it was dealing with just that. I mean, it's taken the person I am now 30 years after I started to be able to work with different types of people and to be able to control my reactions and control my triggered state. I mean, you are smooth as can be. So that started in the sorority. That's where you started that league.
I mean, I think I started to realize that I was good at it. Kind of, I don't know, de-escalating situations, being able to, you know, difficulties come up. I never got, at least as well, really ever, but, you know, girls can fall into the trap of the drama and the who did this and that. I never really fell into that kind of a situation. And so I think that for me, you know, I don't know if Kennedy's in a sorority, but being in a sorority can be really interesting because there's all these girl personalities that come out. And so being able to work with each one of them in a way that doesn't make everybody upset or, make everybody mad really, really helped me. Help me understand that.
You try hard things. Try hard things. You want to be a leader? Look around at if you're listening right now, what do you belong to?
Yeah.
Be a leader, and it's back to that working while you're in high school. It's the interactions, it's the practice, it's the what you like and don't like, your unique ability. If Sharon was good at it and hated it, she wouldn't have gone into leadership and administration at schools, because there would have been an early realization that something else was right for me. So
Right.
you're using your opportunity. And no, we don't have the drama of a sorority, but you know what we do have the drama of? We have the drama of Jackson's going to sleep at our house tonight, Dad. So there's now a sword, because they didn't think I had a sword, sitting on one of the shelves. And I pull the sword out as I go and I say, "We'll go home early tonight, Jackson." Yeah. And then I look at my phone to see if he's coming in and out of the gate, which he ate earlier today. So I know he went home. But that's the drama we have at my house. And thank you for raising my daughter that way.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's and what better platform, the last 20 years of being in, leadership in an independent school, was growing into what it is now. Kind of a teenage school. I mean, our school, you were there. We were in our kind of teenage state where we didn't know who we were. We didn't know what we wanted to be. The ability to try to navigate all the personalities of the 140 employees that we had and the over 500 families. It's a lot and of course, let's not forget the 700 kids, that were, so it's a lot of personalities with a lot of opinions, a lot of perspectives on why they're there. And so, to be able to try to navigate that and clarify that was, if I think about my work life, probably one of the greatest moments for me is the fact that we as a school were able to clarify who we are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So let's move into that then. So this show is all about exposure to careers. What do different people do? And we bring people on. I think you're going to be in the 150 or 60 episode number. I don't know. So there's been 150 or 60 different stories, different ways to approach careers. And I think people know what's on TV and what they're exposed to. They know the doctors, nurses, lawyers, politicians, teachers. They know the first responders. So I think a lot of people know what teachers do, and the people that want to be teachers probably have a reason. We're going to get a little deeper into admin than the teachers, but what don't they know? Like I'll give you mine. You let me be a fourth grade teacher one day for like an hour and a half. On the negative side, what I didn't know was for an hour and a half, it was very difficult to maintain the attention of 21 fourth graders. And that was for an hour and a half one day. So I got exposed to, okay, how do you stay constructive and maintain the attention on the surprisingly good side? And I also did it with fourth graders. I did a history class and I did that entrepreneur thing with fourth graders, which lasted many more weeks. On the other side, the surprise for me was just the sparkles in the eyes, which is why I have the College Works business, because I love seeing the sparkles in the eyes when people go, I get it. And still to this day, I run into those kids from that project and they say, "You're that entrepreneur guy. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if I told you this, but I went on a boat in Croatia with Lisa Mirage and her family. They had a family vacation, invited Jill and I to go," which, by the way, if you're listening, want to go on a cool vacation, let other people invite you on their family vacation. Learn that you don't have to fight on family vacations. That there's no fights at all. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know this was possible. One of the kids on the boat, because the 5 kids brought friends, was in that class. And I saw entrepreneurship, and we kind of looking at each other. It took us a little while to figure it out. So that just instant connection, lifelong connection. And we can all remember our 4th grade teacher. I remember my 3rd grade Miss Harriger. So those were the 2 big surprises. What don't people know that comes off your mind first about being a teacher? The surprisingly good and maybe the surprisingly challenging.
Yeah. You know, I think that what people don't know about teaching, before we can talk about administration or leadership, and that's important. But one of the things that they don't realize about teaching is the need for, uh, I call it orchestration. If you think about it, you've got to create an environment where, like you said, people are learning, kids are engaged, they're not jumping off the desks. So you have to have this kind of control, but you also can't be, screaming and yelling. I mean, that's not going to work. So it's this gift and of being able to kind of settle a room
Yeah.
and
Over and over and over again.
over and over and depending on the
3 minutes.
yeah, depending on the age of the kid, it's every 3 minutes. And and teachers who do it well love it because it speaks exactly to their skill set. And if you are, and I'll say this, if you are a control freak, teaching is for you. And being a teacher allows you to control your environment. You're not up there, not to say you're up there just kind of, dictating everything, but you get to create an environment. And what a great feeling when you're in a classroom and everything's humming the way it should be. Some kids are working at a small group doing, a project. Some kids are with you, small, differentiated instruction. Some kids are working on reading a book, whatever it is, there's this ability to really just orchestrate your environment. So if you are a young person who likes to do that, education and teaching is the opportunity to really every single day control your environment and then get the outcome of it. These kids, like you said, they're yours for life. We're up through 8th grade, right? I can't tell you how many kids come back to St. Mary's alumni who just have this feeling, this memory, and whoever it is, they'll want to come see this teacher, that teacher. They want to go back to the hallway that they walked through. And I don't know how normal that is or not. I see my own kids remembering that moment at St. Mary's versus, their high school or, their college or what have you. So I don't know. I'd like to say we have a little bit of a secret kind of, community where people want to come back.
So the special surprise is if you do it right, then you're that 4th grade teacher, Miss Sievert for me, or that 3rd grade teacher, Miss Harriger, who walked us, the whole class, like 3 miles to her house because she had been to Africa a bunch of times and showed us her house decorated with Africa and then walked us back like 6 miles in 3rd grade. But I'll never forget that, right? So if you can pull that off, then they come back. And it is strange, and this is a shout out to St. Mary's. And St. Mary's was always a great school. And when my kids went there, it was a life-changing experience. But you're right, it was in its teenage years just figuring out and just gotten better and better and better. I have not seen a school where kids come for reunions. I've not seen an elementary, middle school where kids come for reunions and the kids go for reunions. It's crazy. I went to one and I was there and there was all these kids that were my kids' age and other kids' ages going to a reunion for middle school. There's something special about that. And so the orchestration of being able to get these things moving is a cool challenge. What else? What else? If you said if you're a control freak, you might want to be a teacher. If you love kids, by the way, I've always wanted to be a teacher. I figured out a different way to be a teacher. By the way, orchestrating in the college age is a lot easier than orchestrating in the 4th grade age. If you love kids, and I think that's probably where it starts. You love kids, you want the next generation to do well, you're willing to devote a ton of energy to making sure they do.
You gotta love learning. I mean, learning, you gotta be somebody who's curious, who wants to, be willing to grow. Unfortunately, on that kind of other side of teachers, if they aren't in that mindset, that growth mindset, And we all, remember them when we were in school, those teachers that just, came in, brought the book, opened it up. All right, we're reading chapter 4 today. And there's no motivation. There's no willing to really engage. So yes, you have to love children, of course, but you have to love learning. It's called a love of learning. And that you've got to model that for your kids. Because we want our kids to, the IB program that we have at St. Mary's is really grounded in inquiry. And so it's that concept of being curious. And so we want our kids to have that freedom and that autonomy to be curious. Kids are naturally curious when they're 3 years old and 4 years old. They ask questions. They're filled with curiosity. We love that about little preschoolers. Something in the educational system around 3rd to 4th grade, it changes for kids in that they start to realize I have to do A, B, and C to get to the end and get a grade or be judged by what it is. So they lose that ability to ask questions, be curious, still want to learn. So one of the things that is important in my kind of educational philosophy is to always model learning, curiosity, asking questions, trying to understand, those kinds of things. It's not about, and you've heard probably me say this a million times, it's not about memorizing the facts of the American Revolution and how many battles there were or how many, soldiers died and whatever. It's not about that. It's about understanding the motivation behind why would a group of people be willing to risk their life to change their life. Why would somebody revolt against something else? Not, the details, we can look that up now. We know we can find all that, drop of a hat. What we can't find is trying to understand the motivation and what would cause somebody to do something like that. So, I think that creates a place where students love to learn.
Yeah. Wow. So knowing that, experiencing that, doing such a good job with that, eventually you shifted. And that's what I met you. You shifted and you were a member of the board. And then as a member of the board, I do not believe you were an administrator at the time. Had you been an administrator?
Yeah. Yeah, I had. Yeah, I was the head of lower school.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were head of lower school. So you went for teaching
To the IB program. I was the International Baccalaureate Program Coordinator. So really helped, didn't do it by myself, brought that program to the school, formalized that. I was the Dean of Academics.
Okay.
Got a lot of those. And, prior to that, I think my leadership came out pretty early in my career. I became kind of growing, climbing that ladder of lead teacher, whatever those kind of smaller leadership roles are, moving into bringing the IB program to St. Mary's, and then Dean of Academics, and then school principal. And then, got onto the board for a short period of time, was not on the board for long as a board member, but I was there. And then assumed the role and came into the role of head of school.
That's not how it went down. When you were in high school and you're doing all these jobs and you were getting that feeling of I love working hard, were you in any leadership positions in any of your jobs before the sorority, or was the sorority leadership the first?
And no, I definitely was. I spent every summer I was, working and it was with kids. I was working in summer camps. I was working in all of that. So yeah, I would, camp leaders and, did all of those kinds of things.
So part of this path is this discovery of what it takes, what you're good at, what your unique ability is. Part of the path is the experience of working when you're young, trying things out. That's how you, not just on the field, that's how you develop your leadership skills. Then you do it in your volunteer job at the sorority. And then you get into your regular job and you're organized, you've got great time management, and you're a natural leader, and you're good at orchestrating the room. People are probably looking at how you're teaching, thinking, I want to learn from them. They can deliver value. And you move into a variety of leadership roles that eventually took you out of the classroom. So you're a lead teacher. You did these different dean roles. You then were head of the lower school principal, invited on the board. You were the only faculty member on the board. And I don't remember, I was there before you, I think.
Just a little bit. Yeah. On the board.
Yeah, so there's discussion on, we need to get that understanding, that knowledge base. Then you became interim. Don't forget interim headmaster. Then myself decided to make sure before we promoted you that we would search everywhere and make sure we had the right person, which did frustrate the board. Then you became headmaster. Don't forget that I did that very frustrating pause. And honestly, you're not going to say this, but the best head of school that the school had ever had at the time. Now, we don't measure based on what you did. We measure based on what your successor does. So you will not get the crown of being the greatest head of school that the
Darn better
had until we see what happens. But I have a feeling you get the crowd. So you're slowly moving into more leadership into the administration role. And I love teaching. I still do it. I was doing a meeting today, one-on-one teaching. I love the group teaching. I love following up and tracking. I love getting my people coming to pick my brain. And now you go into administration. How's the change of what was different about the role?
Well, I think that, it's an interesting concept that like the best teachers become the leaders. So, a lot of times families might get disappointed, let's name, whatever. Teacher A is the best teacher, best third grade teacher there is. Kids love him or her, lots of learning going on, and they're promoted into a leadership role. And it really frustrates parents, right? They're thinking, darn, why would you take this person out? So, what we always kind of say is that person can have more impact across a division or across a group.
Remember these?
Yeah.
Remember the frustration?
Yellow paper too.
I just want to let you know it was me. It was me printing those yellow papers all the time. Yes, there is frustration. You promote a teacher and you might get a yellow paper too.
Why are they doing this? Yeah. So I guess I felt, for me, I was able to have greater impact on the teachers that I worked with. Certainly the growth of the school, the growth of the program, just to be able to move it farther. So it's kind of a greater good thing.
Yeah, the administration role, and it's interesting because the same thing happens in business. The best people are moved into the management. And then you take out the best people from that level. And then the best managers move into the next best management. It's like, oh, what are we going to do? What you're going to do is find a great successor and teach, and we're creating more.
Yeah.
So the last best third grade teacher's gone. The next best third grade teacher, and not next as in one level down, but the up and coming, even better than the last one's coming, because we're going to hire a great person and then dump all the knowledge and teach everything. So you're doing it for the greater good of the school, and doing it for the greater good of the people coming up, because you can't clog the pipeline.
Right. That's true. And you also need to really think about, and this is true in business and the education, any of it, your hiring practices. Who are you bringing in? And if you're clear, if your school is clear, if your company is clear about your mission, your vision, and your values, this is who you are. Your mission is what you do every single day in, day out. What do you do? Your vision is obviously forward thinking. What do you ultimately want? In my case, what do I want these children to become? What am I looking to do? And then your values is just kind of what's important to you. What is it that's important to you? So again, in my, if I look back at my leadership at the school, the thing that I'm most proud of is clarifying mission, vision, values for the school. And that then goes into hiring practices. When I interview a prospective teacher or administrator, whatever it is, first question I ask them is, tell me about what you think about our mission and our vision. Like, how does it speak to you? And yeah, I've had many that come in and it's very clear they have not done their homework to think about what that connection is. But boy, those that come in and can find that connection on how that works in their life is the starting point. Because I don't want a teacher or an administrator or anyone at the school if they don't agree with or are on board with what our mission is. It's very important. And our mission is, we've gone through a lot of iterations of a mission. We have a really, really great, simple mission right now, which is world-sized hearts and world-class minds. That's it. So start with the heart so you can get to the mind. And, I'd like to think that my time at the school has helped solidify that. I lead with the heart, 100%, sometimes to a fault. But that's who I am. And I do believe to be able to get your faculty to move in a direction that they need to in order to get your students to be able to, be at the peak of learning, you got to start with their heart. They need to know you care about them. They need to know that, you're on their side. So it's just kind of that getting to the heart, which then opens up that confidence and that freedom to learn and to get to the mind.
I think so. If you have a passion and you think you want to be a teacher and you check all the boxes that we talked about before, and you become really good at it, which don't listen to this show if you don't want to be really good at it, then there's going to be these opportunities for leadership. Starts with the passion for education. It starts with knowing a great way to do things, and then you move into the business of education. And you're not moving into the business of medicine usually, and I know there are a bunch of CEOs of medical groups that aren't doctors, but most of them understand the business they're in.
Right.
So you do really well at that business and you become a leader in that business. You know a great way of doing things, but as you said, you're open and thirsty for knowledge of other great ways. And first step in a leader of a business or a school, where are you going? That's your vision. Why are you going there? That's your mission. How are you going to get there? That's your values. And clarify that as a leader. The head of a school is the CEO of the school. The head of the lower school is the president of the lower school. The dean is the executive vice president. It's the same as a corporate structure. First thing's always vision, mission, values. Where are you going? And then live them and use them. Then you set the strategy, which you got to know what's good and what's bad to set the strategy. And then it becomes execution. So you became a businesswoman that happened to be a teacher.
Right.
I'm a businessman that happens to be a teacher. Sometimes there's doctors that are business people that happen to be a doctor, or lawyers that are business people that happen to be a lawyer. It's the same in life, and you've got to have that passion first. And then, did you do a good job as a leader? I think that we could say yes. Went from many openings to wait lists in every grade.
Yeah.
Went from trying to build out a campus, I think 3 separate times, including having a full model in the lobby that sat there forever, to actually executing on that. And went from raising X amount of dollars a year to 10X that number in 1 year. And they did it again. Went from a school that people loved to, cult would be the wrong word, but a membership, let's say. It was a school you loved to, you were a member of the values, the inquisitive, all that stuff worked so well because you have skills, right? You're good at it. And I think that's what people have to think about. You practice, and you kept moving up. We would have known each other if you were the president of the school, but you moved up because of that. Really good at setting the vision, mission, values, really good at communicating, really good at using it as a filter. People had to go, right?
Right.
There were some
People
teachers.
did go. Teachers and parents and families. Yeah.
I know. I remember a couple of them. I helped them go.
Yeah. It's a nice exit. Can I also comment on, the the way that we're structured is we have a board of trustees, and the board really helps. Does not get into the day in and day out minutia.
Oh, a lot of boards do. But hey, if you're on a board, stay out of the minutia.
My board. But, yeah, it's a learning process, right? Always. But to really, go into the kind of nonprofit board leadership and know that, you're not, this isn't, I always tell my board members, when you're making decisions and you're thinking about things, think about this for your grandchildren, not for your children.
Yeah.
And, kind of walk in and think about the sustainability, the long-term sustainability of the organization that you're on. And now in my kind of later years, I'm actually on a few boards in addition, to being part of the school board. And I love that concept. It's really great. I've just jumped onto a few boards and plan to do more of that. But I really think coming in with that concept of, we're here to make this a better place or a better, mission or whatever it is we're doing. So I do have to give credit to my boards over the years because I think that really helped me. Because, you get, in a nonprofit world or, you get this board of these experts who are really, it's just the time that they're giving a school leader, a school head is invaluable. And what I would have to pay for that to get that kind of expertise, I couldn't put a number on it. But yeah, it's a big deal. And it's really, really helped to grow our school. You commented on, some of the capital projects that we did. We had a complete transformation of the campus, which, just really was kind of set that platform for us to be able to do what we've done now. The last 3 years, I've been working on a project to get the campus completely done. And the design center that we're working on now is just that next logical step of instilling all those things I was talking about, that love of learning, that ability to do more than just kind of memorize facts, but actually work with your hands and get into spaces. It's just this natural next progression to what the school's doing. And yeah, we've hit a nerve, or the community has responded and they want to send their kids there. Because they want to get a piece of that. They want to understand that. And I think it's unique. We live in Orange County, so, a lot of our families can provide a lot for their kids. But I think it's important that families understand, at least from our perspective, that, where we live is not the world. There's a whole other part. And it's not those traveling, great vacations that many of our families go on. But there's also, we have so many more service project trips now where we incorporate. I know your kids went to some of our service trips or our trip went to Italy or France. I don't know which ones your kids went on, but, we have a service component for all of them now. So it's not just about going to see beautiful places and, different cultures. That's a part of it, and that's important. But there's also lots of people out there that need our help in different ways. And so, trying to kind of get that across for students, for children, who are probably going to have a lot in front of them, a lot of opportunities. That's and our vision. When I think about vision, is it's helping children to become enlightened leaders and compassionate and thinking about the world and making a change, because those are the people that are going to impact the world.
And compassion comes from understanding. You see, the strife we have is from a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
If you go into some of these places and you understand and you meet the people, you can't imagine it if you haven't been exposed to it. I just want to comment on just all that passion right there. That's kind of the last phase of it. You go through the educational path, you go through the administrative path, you get all this knowledge and you get this experience. And then you start to implement things in new and interesting ways. So you've learned new and interesting ways. There's a spatial element to it. We need to build out the school. How are we going to pay for it? New and interesting ways. You're constantly learning how to run the business, this education business better. And your product, sometimes we don't measure it for quite a few years. The product is the reunions, right?
Yeah.
The product is knowing that, in my case, the kids all moved off together. They all went to different high schools. They all went to different colleges, but they kind of stayed in their little pod and came back together. And they're all still supporting, still inquisitive, still curious, still thinking. And, that's when you know you had an impactful job. Well, Sharon, I want to just say thank you. Before I finish with you, I'm going to say thank you so much for making time.
Well, thank
I
you.
loved you sharing how the business of education works and the path through your career. I want to ask you if there's anything else you want to say before we shut it down, because sometimes we get done and people are like, I had one more thing. Anything we missed on this about the path to education and the path to wonderful administration that you need to share?
Just if this, and I know kind of your audience is you're thinking about whether it's, young adults thinking about what they want to do. The world of education is in great need. We need compassionate people who can have impact. And, a nonprofit industry may not be the, highest financial gain, but there's room for leadership, there's room for growth, and what a huge impact that people can make on our young people. And that's probably one of the biggest things that we want. We want to get those young people out there making a difference.
Yeah. And in the end, that the financial gain, the money spent, the legacy is what can't be spent. And teachers have a wonderful opportunity to do other things if they have a summer break.
Yeah.
Start a business. You can have your cake and eat it too. Well, Sharon, thank you so much for making time today. Thanks for coming on the Edge of Excellence.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.